If you were to take a walk through the quiet, developing neighborhood of Leimert Park in Los Angeles on the morning of January 15th, 1947, you would have seen a city desperately trying to find its footing after the chaos of the Second World War. New housing developments were popping up, young families were moving in, and a quiet, suburban peace was settling over the palm-lined streets. But as the morning fog began to roll back across an empty, weed-choked dirt lot on South Norton Avenue, a local mother, pushing her infant child in a stroller, noticed something white resting in the grass. At first, she thought it was just a discarded clothing store mannequin that had been broken in half. But as she stepped closer, a terrifying reality caused her to scream out in pure horror. This was the final resting place of a young woman named Elizabeth Short. Elizabeth was just 22 years old, a striking, highly ambitious young woman with pale blue eyes and hair dyed as black as a raven's wing. Like thousands of others during that era, she had traveled to Los Angeles with a heart full of dreams, hoping to break into the booming Hollywood film industry. But the City of Angels can be an incredibly dangerous place for a young woman traveling alone. The media, transfixed by her dark, vintage clothing and the Black Dahlia flower she reportedly wore in her hair, instantly gave her a name that would become a permanent, haunting monument in American crime history. They called her the Black Dahlia. And the sheer mechanical precision of the crime scene suggested that her killer wasn't just a random street predator. He was a master of a very specific, highly clinical craft. When the first LAPD patrol cars swarmed Norton Avenue, the seasoned homicide detectives who stepped onto the dirt lot were completely paralyzed by what they saw. Elizabeth's body had been cleanly, surgically severed completely in half at the waist. There was absolutely no blood at the scene. Her body had been meticulously, professionally drained of every single drop of fluid before being transported to the lot, suggesting the work was done inside a clinical environment. Most unsettlingly, the killer had used a scalpel to carve a deep, twisted 3-inch smile into both sides of her face, stretching from the corners of her mouth straight to her ears, a horrific mark known in deep criminal underworlds as the Glasgow Smile. The county coroner would later note that the precise bisection of the spine had been executed using a highly advanced medical technique known as a hemicorporectomy, a procedure taught only to high-level surgeons and medical students. This wasn't a crime of chaotic, uncontrolled rage. This was a cold, calculated exhibition of surgical expertise. The killer wanted the police to know exactly how skilled he was, transforming a tragic young woman into a grotesque piece of performance art for the entire city to see. As the LAPD launched the largest, most expansive investigation in the history of the city, the predator decided that the crime scene wasn't enough. He wanted to actively participate in the media circus. On January 24th, 9 days after the discovery, a postal worker sorting mail in a downtown station noticed a heavy, suspicious manila envelope addressed directly to the Los Angeles newspapers. The address on the front had been painstakingly constructed out of individual letters clipped from local newspaper headlines. Inside, detectives found a treasure trove of psychological taunts. The killer had enclosed Elizabeth's actual birth certificate, her social security card, personal photographs, and a small black address book with the name Mark Hansen embossed on the leather cover. Every single item inside the envelope had been thoroughly, meticulously washed in gasoline to completely destroy any trace of fingerprints or biological data before being mailed. Days later, another letter arrived at the precinct, signed simply, "The Black Dahlia Avenger." He promised to turn himself in if the police could solve his puzzles, playing a mocking, high-stakes game of chess with the detectives while keeping his true identity securely locked away behind a mask of high society respectability. Over the passing decades, the LAPD investigated more than 150 potential suspects, but every single lead eventually evaporated into a labyrinth of dead ends. But the narrative reached a massive, historic breakthrough decades later. driven by an elite investigator who realized the truth might have been sleeping inside his own family tree. Steve Hodel, a veteran, highly decorated former LAPD homicide detective, began investigating his late father, Dr. George Hodel. Dr. Hodel was a brilliant, highly eccentric, and wealthy Hollywood physician who ran a private venereal disease clinic for the city's elite class in the 1940s. He lived inside the famous Sowden House, a bizarre, imposing Mayan-style mansion in Hollywood built with sharp concrete blocks that resembled a gaping shark's mouth. Steve discovered that back in 1947, his father had actually been a top-secret suspect on the LAPD's internal radar. Police had secretly wiretapped the Sowden House, recording Dr. Hodel saying to an associate, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia. They couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." Furthermore, Dr. Hodel possessed advanced surgical training and was a master of the exact anatomical techniques used to bisect Elizabeth's body. But due to his immense wealth, high society political connections, and the potential exposure of corruption within the city's elite circles, he was never officially charged, leaving the country shortly after the grand jury investigation stalled. Today, the Los Angeles Police Department officially maintains the Black Dahlia file as an open, active cold case. But because of the absolute passage of time, the destruction of vintage evidence logs, and the deaths of every single original suspect, witness, and detective, the case will almost certainly never see a definitive courtroom resolution. Dr. George Hodel passed away in 1999, carrying the absolute, final answer straight to his grave. The enduring tragedy of Elizabeth Short is a profound reminder of the dark underbelly that has always run beneath the glamorous facade of the Hollywood dream. She wasn't a character in a noir novel or a prop in a studio thriller. She was a real, living young woman with a family who loved her, whose future was brutally, clinically stolen by a predator who believed his status made him completely untouchable. By continuing to examine the archives, strip away the sensationalized myths, and focus heavily on the forensic facts, we ensure that her humanity is preserved and that her name will be remembered long after the shadows of the old city fade into history. I want to know what you guys think about this legendary Hollywood mystery. Do you believe the evidence points directly to the dark corridors of the Sowden House and Dr. George Hodel, or did a completely different, unknown monster manage to execute the perfect crime in the dark of 1947? Let's talk about it down in the comments below, and please keep the discussion deeply respectful of the memory of Elizabeth Short. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, look out for one another, and I'll see you in the next deep dive. Bye.